Brought to you by Mint Mobile. Stay tuned for a special offer at the end of the show. Hi, and welcome to the Mobile Tech Podcast. I'm your host, Miriam Shor, and today is Thursday, May 7th, 2026. And I've got the lovely Enobong from Booredatwork with me today. Hi, Enobong, how are you?
I'm good. I'm glad to be back. It's been a while, but
Yeah,
thank
it
you for having
has.
me.
You know, there's a whole bunch of topics you and I kind of always kind of cross paths on, and one of them is audio, and
Yeah.
specifically personal audio. Another one is, gaming related products, laptops, that kind of stuff. And you and I are both kind of cross-platform agnostic people who like to use devices regardless. Like, I
Yeah.
mean, I'm the same for even my phones. And so I want to talk to you about some of the cool things that happen in that space, and then let's talk about cars a little bit, because you and I are both car enthusiasts, and I have some stuff that I've just need to get out there, because like there's some really cool stuff I've seen from Hyundai and Mercedes recently. And then finally, AI. How do you use AI, and how do you think it's impacting our work? And, we'll have some news items thrown in there, folks. I'll have some links to some of Enobong's videos in the show notes to go along with this. But let's start with audio. What do you think we're at? For me, the kind of there's been an inflection point in a way, because we're seeing like Harman, which is owned by Samsung, which is kind of everywhere. Every car almost has Harman derived sound system in there. In almost every earbuds made by any major manufacturer are pretty much made by Harman these days. And we've seen the Galaxy Buds4 Pro, and they are just incredibly good. At any price, really, to be honest with you, I think. Yeah. Mine are actually on my desk. But look, what are your thoughts? Like, do you think we've turned a page, and now from now on, we're just going to get incredibly good earbuds no matter where we go and who we buy them from?
I agree with that sentiment. I think actually this inflection started about 3 years ago.
Okay.
And I think it's moved away from Qualcomm to what Harman is doing on the physical driver side of things.
Right.
Because, Qualcomm with aptX and some of the aptX work they did with, I've forgotten what specific, nomenclature they had at the time, really drove the sound processing at a very lower price point,
Right.
which is why we started getting some better headphones under $100, even some at $50, where you're like, you know what, this is not bad, right? And then you take that and you see what Harman is doing. Harman is such a big company in that audio space that allows for everyone to use their products. That I found it quite interesting, because I felt there's a part of me that felt that this is a space that Sony could have easily dominated.
Yeah.
But Harman really took that drive as a company under Samsung, which Samsung, I guess, understanding the fact that, look, we need you to make stuff more than just headphones for us. We need stuff that, we can sell to other people that makes the most amount of sense. And I think you're right. We're getting to that point where at $100, you will pick up a pair of headphones and go like, I'm good.
I agree. But for me, my angle is a bit different. I feel that the ones I've tried at that price point, I think the disruption has happened from the Chinese manufacturers, like the OnePluses and the Nothing. I mean, Nothing is UK based, but it's all China stuff. Anytime you get a pair of earbuds that has LHDC as a codec, you pretty much guaranteed it's a Chinese chipset. And that means it's not Qualcomm. It means it doesn't support aptX. It's AAC and SBC and LHDC. And then LDAC sometimes, like if it's like, here's what's interesting, right? The Buds4 Pro from Samsung, the Galaxy Buds, are their custom chipset from Samsung,
True.
right?
Yeah.
So Qualcomm didn't even touch that. And then you're absolutely right on the drivers. I think this is going to be the key pivot, is the drivers. I think that the DSP tech has been there from MediaTek, from Qualcomm, from the Chinese chipsets, and from custom chipsets, like Apple has its custom chipset, Samsung has its custom chipset. But I think that for me, what's changed is the acoustics, the tuning, and Harman has always been at the forefront of that. Like, I don't always like the tuning of Harman systems, especially in cars, because it's based on what the company wants to, the image they want to sell for their audio system. And that's what I think Harman is brilliant at doing. They can customize the sound system. But when they want to, if they apply themselves and they listen to the requirements of their, engineers and sound people, they can make some of the best tuning. And that's why the Harman curve exists, right? Like, I mean, it's a thing. It's a reference point that tells us this is what studio sound should be like. Let's go with that. And as a professional that worked in audio for years, that's all I want. I want the flattest, most studio-like experience in my earbuds. And this is the first time with the Galaxy Buds 4 Pro that I've experienced that at a sub 300 price point. Like, Sony's earbuds have always been amazing, right? The high-end ones, the WF series. But they are expensive and they're not very comfortable, and they make a lot of compromises in other areas.
Yeah.
Where I think Samsung nailed it is that it's extremely accessible. You don't have to put them in your ear 100% right because they tune automatically. Like, all that stuff, it makes them day-to-day super usable. And the previous buds that for me really nailed it like that were the OnePlus buds and the Nothing buds. Not all of them, but many of them.
Yeah.
Especially the latest OnePlus. But again, all of those are LHDC, and the Samsung one, you need a Samsung device with their proprietary codec to get the maximum. But here's the thing: I want to point out to everyone, even me as a professional audio person, I can, but I cannot enough to be a problem distinguish AAC from a properly tuned AAC codec. On, like, my Pixel's actually doing a pretty decent job now with AAC. Apple devices did a fantastic job with AAC. I cannot distinguish that from the higher bitrate stuff if I'm just walking down the streets and not doing critical listening. So, and I have to know the audio material too. Like, I would be lying if I could tell it apart on something I don't know, right?
No,
musically.
yes, yeah.
But my point is, we're at the stage where those codecs don't matter so much anymore. It's more like the acoustic. And I think you said the drivers, I don't know what's going on. There's also a resurgence of balanced armature right now. A lot of, and that, I think, I worked in audiology doing hearing research. Balanced armature was the thing. Like, if you had something that wanted to be precise and in somebody's ear to test their hearing, it was balanced armature. And seeing Knowles, for example, which is a company that makes balanced armature drivers for hearing aids, right? That's what they're for usually. Put one of those for kind of the higher frequencies and put like a decent dynamic driver for the lower frequencies. And then you have filters. You have to match the filters. You have to do all that frequency response stuff. And this is, I think, where we're getting better. Would you agree?
No, I do agree. I think you look at it this way: I think that the marriage between Harman and Samsung has brought the marriage between manufacturing processing, which means scale, cheaper, smaller, better, and experience. And going back to balanced armature, which they've done so well for years, right? It's like taking what you know how to do well and partnering with somebody that goes like, I can help you make that even better, faster, cleaner. And then you match that with the Harman curve, right? It's almost a match made in heaven of saying, you know what, we can make this cheaper and fast, and we know how to tune it. So therefore, you're going to be getting good sound. It's to the point where I have stopped carrying, I think since probably last year was the year, I stopped carrying like my over-the-ear cans on a plane.
Wow.
Not just because of noise cancellation on, the buds have gotten much better.
Yes.
But also just the audio quality in general has been really good. So I'm like, I want to travel lighter. The buds are working. Like, I don't feel like I'm sacrificing on my audio. And it brings me to a point. I saw this TikToker drop a video. I believe his name is Matty K. And he said something very interesting, which we all know. And I also realized from like a survey I did at Sony Kando years ago. He's like, look, to be fair, most people don't care about their audio quality. He's like, it's shocking, they care about good enough.
Yep.
And that's it. And, he was talking about, wired headphones and stuff like that. But I'm happy that the level of good enough, especially with things like the Galaxy Buds, is higher.
Yeah,
that's all I want to see.
The good enough that's good enough for me. And that's a high bar, and for you. And that's a high bar. We're pretty picky. And that's what excites me, is that I can almost pick anything, like 100 nothing CMF buds by Nothing, right? $100, less than $100, half of them. They're not as good as those Galaxies, but they're good enough even for me. And then, you get into the $150 range and I'm 100% happy. You get it to the 200, 250, 300, I'm like, okay, whatever, we're done, right?
Yeah.
And then, you look at even like little independent manufacturers like the Pro X, right? Status Audio, they blew me away when I first tried. I'm like, this was before the Galaxy Buds 4. And I was like, wow,
Yeah.
like, there's lots of little things they need to fix. Like the in-ear detection doesn't work super well. So if you threw them in your pocket without putting them in the case, they start playing music and stuff. The battery life isn't quite there. And the ANC is good, but not state-of-the-art good. But the sound quality on those is you owe yourself to try them out. They are incredibly well tuned. And again, balanced armature, dynamic driver. They're really small, comfortable. So they hit a lot of points for an independent company. It's pretty impressive. But where do you think Apple's going next? Because, we hear about these AirPods Pro 3 or whatever that might have cameras built in and AI features, and fine. But like, I want the audio, and Apple, I feel, is a little behind right now. I feel like now that Samsung's got those Buds 4 Pro or whatever they're called, game has changed. I think Apple needs to step it up.
No, I do agree. I think the rumors of like the camera and all that stuff, it's not, even if you do that, it's not a high level. It's not going to be a high res camera. It might have to do with maybe more of like the fitness side of things, measuring different, like, I feel like it might go that direction, which is fine. But when it comes to the drivers, like the one thing I have not liked with Apple Buds is that the sound, it sounds too clean, too lab-like, very sterile is the best way for me to. There's nothing wrong with it in the sense that like it sounds good. Your highs are coming out, your mids are clear. It depends on what you're using. Like the Max 2s are fine, great with that, but they have this very, clinical, almost average sound.
Exactly.
In a weird way, almost
and
average
somehow
sound.
Samsung was able to give us accurate sound, but give it a personality, and another personality that's like annoying. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I don't know how they did it. Every time I put them on, I'm like, I didn't even change the EQ. Enobong, I never do. Like, I always tune my earbuds.
Yeah, with Samsung. Yeah, I would always play around with it.
And I just put them on clear, which is my favorite mode. That's a preset. And I was like, okay, this is it. I don't have to tune anything. This is like, wow. And then the more I listened, the more I was like, wow, holy crap, the resolution, the imaging. And you know what else? I have the Buds 4 non-pro as well. Just as good. I mean,
I haven't tried them.
They are not as good in the sense that you don't get any, you get noise canceling, but it's obviously not as good. You're going to get more ambient noise. They don't have quite as good processing and drivers, but in terms of sound signature, they're extremely close. And also out of the box, don't really require much, but maybe a preset change. And that blows my mind. Like, we're at a different level now with these. And so, and OnePlus the same, like the last OnePlus Buds, even the non-pro models, I still use them. They're still incredible. I use them on devices that support LHDC. Like, by the way, folks, for those of you watching on Patreon, like this phone here, the Moto Razr Fold. Yes, I have one, a review coming soon. But my point is, in case you're listening and going, what video? Well, there is a video version of the podcast. You can get it every week for $5 a month, a day in advance. You get it on Saturdays. The audio goes out on Sundays. $5 a month. Patreon.com/TNKJRL. Anyway, my point is that LHDC, I use it. Generally, Chinese phones, they all have LHDC of some kind. Honor does. Of course, we're looking at like OnePlus, Oppo, Vivo, all of those, right? So I think for me, the takeaway is, it's a big change. It's a big improvement. Everybody can benefit from great audio now without even having to care about audio, as you said. And then where do you think we're going to go for over the ear? I mean, I still use my Sony, the WH6 series, the latest, because I don't know, I still feel the ANC and the sound insulation is a little better, and the battery life on super long flights, like I fly to Asia and stuff, you can't beat that. The earbuds are going to die. You're going to have to put them in the case.
Yeah, it's charged. I mean, I do carry like 3 earbuds. I carry like the Buds 4 Pro, the Buds 3 Pro, and then the Sony WF6.
Yeah.
Just to make sure that I'm covered for a flight.
Okay, cool.
In that regard. I mean, I do hear you. I wanted to bring back something quickly on Apple, which I think they are going to face. I think on one hand, Apple is faced with the idea that, hey, look, we sell the most amount of buds, right? People will always buy. But I've also noticed that a lot of people are not necessarily upgrading. They're still sticking to whichever one they had. If they lose it, they try and buy the same thing again. They've not gone up in SKU. And then I've also seen people slowly leave the ecosystem. I had this is anecdotal evidence, of course, but I'm in my gym and this older lady that works out in the gym with us, she was like, hey, E, you're the tech guy. So I need a pair of buds for me. I'm like, what phone do you use? She's like, an iPhone. I'm like, you know what? Go with the, AirPods Pro 2. And she's like, she checked the price because she'd never bought them. She's like, oh, these are expensive. I'm like, oh, okay. I was like, let me look for something from Soundcore. She's like, yes, my last one was a Soundcore. I'm like, oh, you bought a Soundcore? Really? Which ones? She showed me. And I'm like, okay. I was like, try the 5 Pro. You would probably like this. It's within your price range. And what you had was good, but this is definitely better than that, within that range. And because they have not done anything necessarily new sound-wise, everything else has been outside of that sound range of hey, it's it's working out, it's all these different other features that people are going right now with Apple. It should be there. We don't really care about that. Right. So there's nothing they need to change something with their audio to bring them into this new generation, and also not necessarily change the pricing SKU, but bring that audio level down to whatever SKUs that they have. Because I think that's where that change literally stands. But for the rest of the industry, I think it's going on the right path where we're seeing good audio, we're seeing good prices, and we just keep buying what we want to buy within that price range.
Yeah, I'm excited about this, to be honest. I think everybody deserves better audio. And if by default they get better audio, we're all winning. Because I think we have a whole generation of young people that never heard what good audio can sound like. And I want them to, because there's no reason we can't. The technology is there. The pricing is dropping rapidly. So let's give them that opportunity, right? Like, I think it's like a lost generation almost to me. Like, ever since the iPod, like, I love the iPod, don't get me wrong. None of this technology is wrong. But like, I feel like we lost a whole generation of people who have no idea what good sound is like.
That is true.
And slowly we're bringing them back. And I think that's freaking awesome. And I also think as a population is aging, having better audio devices, like what Apple's doing by doing like basically turning your AirPods into hearing aids and stuff. It's exactly what we need, right? Let's switch gears a little bit. I want to talk with you about this computer I'm recording on right now, this MacBook Neo that I have. I have the higher spec one with the fingerprint sensor. That's most of the reason. I mean, the storage is nice, but I didn't need that. Obviously, we've kind of covered this to death on the podcast. You've covered it to death on your videos. I'll link to a couple of videos that you have on your channel. But I want to talk to you because as a gamer, you're more of a gamer than me in terms of PC gaming. And I know that the MacBook Neo is not a gaming machine, but we've seen people play Cyberpunk and stuff on it. And, I more want to talk with you about like, where do you think we're going with this? And are the PC manufacturers screwed? Because I kind of feel that they are for now. They could catch up somehow. You've just recently reviewed the Asus ZenBook A16. I have the A14 first gen, the one with the original Snapdragon X chip, the baby X, like the super slow, comparatively speaking, kind of like MacBook Neo performance, right?
Yeah.
And I love that computer, but it's literally on paper $1,000. It's like almost twice the price of a MacBook Neo if you buy the education discount. Yet this is to me the only laptop I've used as a PC laptop that's kind of affordable, that matches the build quality and the general kind of, awesomeness of the MacBook Neo. And in fact, I would say the first gen, the A14 that I have, the chip doesn't hold up to even the MacBook Neo, right?
No.
So I want to hear your thoughts on that. Do you think that for casual gaming and for even some basic things like Cyberpunk and stuff, do you think that Macs have an opportunity to come back going forward, both on terms of affordability, accessibility? You want a device that is really good at doing your everyday work, that's really affordable, but you can maybe game on it. Also, at the same time, where do you think the PC makers are going to go? Because I feel like they need they're in trouble. They need to find a better solution. We need A14s at $600. And I don't know if they can do that.
So Apple waited the right time for this. We know that because remember the rumors from last year, and they were waiting for the time. Once RAM prices started going up, they were like, time to drop.
That was a total mic drop of them too. Like,
yeah, the Neo is a great device. Now, I switch devices a lot, and to be fair, my past history, I was a complete Apple hater, like, especially on Macs. I did not like Macs. I still don't generally like using Macs because the way my brain is wired.
Your workflow is on PC, right? Anyway,
yeah, it's still on PC, so it's not that. But I really like the way this device is set up because it does something that I've always focused. I remember when the M1 came out. I got an M1 for my wife, and then we were at this barbecue. Her friends were like, "Oh, we saw her laptop. We want to get it." And I was like, "But I want to get a MacBook Pro." And I looked at them. I'm like, "What do you do for work? What are you using a laptop for?" She's like, "Well, I look at some. I like get the M1." She's like, "No." I'm like, "You're not a pro user." I'm like, "My wife edits all her photo shoots on Photoshop, so at least she should be even using the Pro, but she doesn't.
Yes,
you guys don't." And I feel this is what the Neo has done for honestly 90% of the market, which is you don't need anything more than this. Like now, would I like more RAM? Definitely, because it gets to a choke point.
Oh yeah.
Would I like more storage? Definitely as well. It gets to that point as well. But those are two extraneous factors that, still meets at least, honestly, maybe 70% of the market don't need as much RAM and storage. So they come up with a product that, really handles well for day-to-day tasks. When it comes to gaming, this is where it's a bit of a weird skew. Certain games are now well tuned for the Mac. Cyberpunk is now one of them. Mind you, the history of the game is when it first came out, it was hard.
I know.
It was terrible to play, But seeing that a game like this can run, and to get the high specs you see, you really have to run it at 720p, to be fair.
Yeah.
But it still runs well. You can do your gaming. The only thing that's going to help Mac gaming is Apple itself, and Apple giving away control of that and ensuring that, hey, look, you know what? Let's talk to Steam. Let's make Steam, now that Steam is now native, which is just right before the Neo. And then let's make this a thing where we can pay developers to make sure that games, at least the top popular games start coming in are playable on Mac. I think that's when you start seeing that and where people go, wait, oh, my Neo can do this, or my Air can do this. Or okay, maybe I don't need to build that PC yet. I can chill for a while. So I think on that level, it's done everything they need to do. And I think what Apple, like my next guess is Apple is making a Mac Mini Neo. That's the next thing.
And you know what I think also they're going to make? An iPad Neo, $199, like something ridiculous.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's really in that frame where you can do a lot of stuff with that. Now, on the flip side, the PC market is not screwed, but the problem with the PC market is it's too splintered, right? It's not one manufacturer.
Well, it's like Android, right? It's like the whole fragmentation and Windows, right? Like, I mean, I don't hate Windows 11. I don't like where it's been going with all Copilot and the AI down your throat and all that stuff, but I don't hate it. Like, I think it's a really solid version of Windows. I like it better than 10, to be honest with you. I know I'm probably in the minority here, but
I agree. I absolutely
agree. The
agree.
last version of Windows I really liked was 7. And then after that, there was like a lull, and then 11. And then before that, of course, anything before Vista is acceptable except for ME.
So the funny thing about 7, just like a quick backstory, like a back nugget, Windows 7 that we all love with the XPS version 3, I can't remember what it was called back then, is literally Windows Longhorn.
Yes.
That's it.
Yep.
But Microsoft, that's a whole conversation just put aside for a second. But back to the PC manufacturers. They have things that are quite viable. You mentioned it earlier. Qualcomm has.
I mean, Snapdragon X series is no joke. I mean, they're there now. Yeah,
they are there. But you know who had the best processor for this?
Intel.
Intel.
Yeah.
Intel Lunar Lake. But
They've
here's the
really
problem.
come around. Like, I am really impressed. They really learned their lesson. But
Oh,
it
yeah,
took the M1 to beat the crap out of them for them to learn their lesson. And this is what I'm
yes.
worried about. Going back to what you were saying is like, I look at what happened when the MacBook Air, the original, the 2008 model came out, right? The manila envelope MacBook Air, the one
Yeah.
you couldn't afford. For 2 years, it was really expensive. It was really slow. But then in 2010, they came out with the wedge MacBook Air, right? 11-inch and 13-inch. And that was affordable. It was like $899, $999 or whatever for the 11. And it's been staying between $899 and $1099, $1199 for this whole 15 years. And here's the thing. It changed the PC industry. Think about it, right? Asus ZenBook came out of basically, they were like, we need to make an Air competitor. Intel help us out. Microsoft help us out. And the ZenBook was born. And the ZenBook still today, your A16 review shows that, is one of the best PC ultralight, ultra portables, right?
Yeah.
So to me, they can do it, but it wasn't them doing it themselves. It was Apple kind of kicking them in the groin with the MacBook Air for them to do it. And I feel that the same thing is happening with the MacBook Neo. It's like the PC industry, like you go to a Best Buy right now or Amazon, it's a nightmare of plastic, crappy trackpads, webcams, speakers, low brightness displays at that price point. Now, yes, you can get a better deal. You can get a $1,000 laptop discounted at $699 at Best Buy all day long, but it's still not even as good as a MacBook Neo in my opinion. Sure, it has more storage, has more RAM because the minimum RAM requirement for Windows 11 is 16 gigabytes. But that's not the point. The point is these are not in the same league as a MacBook Neo. In my opinion, the only thing that's in the same league as a MacBook Neo right now is some of the really nice Lenovo yoga books and some of the Asus ZenBooks. But then you're getting into MacBook Air pricing, right? At least.
So here's the funny part about that, right? I did a video comparing a Asus VivoBook to this.
I saw that,
and here's the thing with the PC market, right? There are too many SKUs.
Exactly.
Too many, because a lot of the comments in my video were like, some people are like, oh, number one, okay, it's not as cheap in my region, which I can get, right? It depends on stuff like that. But some people are like, well, but wasn't that, $1,000 something when it launched? I was like, yes, I'm just saying what's available in the market right now. And the way it goes, I think PC manufacturers have to understand that, like, for you to be effectively do this, you need to slim down a little bit. So
it
you cut out some of the
needs to be
SKUs.
scale, right? Apple has a scale.
Yes. And then the other person who needs to really help is not the chip manufacturers. Because if Intel gives you like subsidies or something, they really want to push Intel stuff, right? Microsoft needs to come in, help with RAM subsidization.
Yeah.
Right?
We need an 8 gigabyte version of Windows 11. I believe that, because especially with the RAM prices right now, I'm all for having more than 8 gigabytes, folks. I know we need more.
I don't think it will work. I think because the way Windows 11 is now, I feel I keep it at 16. See, this is my play to them. I remember talking to Intel, and Intel has something coming out at Computex that I think will compete. Keep it at 16 gigabytes. Do not chase the Neo at the $599, $699. $800 is your price point.
Yeah,
but at that $800,
yeah.
that's $799. Give us something where I look at the Neo and I go, I'll take that. Like that's all you'll
pay the extra, because I paid $699 for this Neo because it's the higher spec one.
Exactly. You just need to give the extra in okay, you've got an
but
OLED
it needs
display.
To be as good and as well made as that A16, that A14. Like we're talking trackpad needs to be tops, camera needs to be tops. Everything needs to be tops. Like in terms of, I don't really care, like forget the specs, storage and processors performance, and even ports at this point. Forget that for a second.
Yeah.
They need to nail the chassis, the display, all those tangible things that you touch immediately when you pick up a Neo right now, it feels no different than picking up a MacBook Pro. Like in terms of build quality, in terms of like, and that is where I don't think anybody's playing in that field right now, except, as I said, the kind of the more affordable, yoga books and the Zen books, and maybe some Dell, and I don't even think HP is in that league yet. But my point is, it's like it's missing. And this is why I'm worried. I think you're right about the RAM. We shouldn't try to go down. I'm just thinking more about RAM prices. But at the same time, I think the other problem is you have to pay the Windows license. Microsoft needs to make Windows free.
No, I know. That's what I mean by Microsoft comes in to go, hey, look, we can't, either we can help you on RAM prices, but we're going to cut down the Windows price, right? Whether it's free or it's like, okay, maybe you guys were I don't know how much they're paying, but let's say you were paying, the pricing was, $1,000 for how many PCs that you make. We drop it down to like $500, cut it in half. That aids in making sure that you're getting that RAM cheaper. But Microsoft has to come in strong as being, look, Intel, AMD, Qualcomm, NVIDIA come in.
Yeah.
All the rumors
Maybe
soon, right?
MediaTek someday. I'm hoping.
Exactly. So how about you all come together? We are going to set a standard for this lower SKU, right? We're going to
like the Ultrabooks, right? Basically.
Yeah, like the Ultrabooks. We were going to try and lean Windows out. You guys are going to come in and RAM prices together we're trying to get a collective to get cheaper pricing for this SKUs. And then we can now go in at a certain price point. But it is Microsoft that has to do this, no one else. Because on the other side, looking at what Intel's doing with their supposed Wildcat chipset, that is basically based off Panther Lake as well, right? And it's coming at a price point that is there. We also have Qualcomm, right, with their X2 series. NVIDIA with whatever they do. Now, NVIDIA, though, I feel like NVIDIA is going to go the higher end, right? Because now they can
100%.
We can give you the GPU you want.
And it's profits, right?
Yes, exactly, on that. But here's the funny part, though. NVIDIA could also skew that game and go like, we want you to have AI processing on hand that's cost effective. So let's play this in a very different game. Because I can see them going that now we can control that AI narrative directly from the PC by giving you something that can process that is, let's say, $1,000, right? It's not competing against the Neo, but at $1,000, and when we get to that AI conversation, we'll see whether it's worth it or not. But like at $1,000, you can now do your on-device AI for most of the things you want to do.
Right.
So people who are skeptical are like, okay, cool. It's not going to the cloud. I can play with my thing and see. Plus, then I can game and I can have that becomes a very good, at least, narrative for them to actually play with.
I think what makes the Neo so unique is, again, vertical integration scale. The fact that they know the manufacturing processes, and that's why they can scale it down in price. They can literally recycle bin chips. Right. And they're running out, right? I wouldn't be surprised if we get another MacBook Neo later this year, not even next year, that is just called Neo, that one day the SKU changes and it's A19 Pro with 12 gigs of RAM instead of A18 Pro with 8 gigs of RAM because they just ran out of chips and now they're putting these bin chips from this year's iPhone, last year's iPhone.
It is the greatest thing because, I was telling somebody, I was like, for Apple, this hits on two fronts, right? Actually three. Number one, it's the operations front. It's so seamless in terms of making this device that like you're basically using the same supply chain, the same production line, all that through that. You don't have to change it much from it. On the second half, it's the accounting beauty of this, right? Even if this device was not profitable, you could roll it into the iPhone because it's an iPhone chipset and motherboard. So therefore, you posted no loss, right? In that aspect.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Completely. And then third, it's like you said, it's the reusability of one, your buyback program of buying back iPhones now becomes a profit leader because it literally goes back out the door.
Right.
And the second half of that is that the fact that like your upgrade cycle is predicted with every single new phone you make.
And you get the OS for free because you build it in-house. And it's super efficient because it runs okay on 8 gigs of RAM. Look, I've had this laptop for 3 weeks and I've traveled a ton in those 3 weeks. And I've only had it choke once so far. And even my MacBook Air, I have an M2 Air menu, so it's older. But my MacBook Air would choke about the same way. And that was when I was editing 4K video in DaVinci while having Firefox running for almost 24 hours with multiple tabs, and Firefox was having a memory leak and was just trashing the system. So when I finally killed Firefox and restarted it, it wasn't DaVinci. It was fine. It was chugging in DaVinci because it was running out of RAM and it was swapping. But it's incredible to me because I'm using this MacBook Neo that's just, designed for students to browse the web and do assignments in Google Docs. And I'm like editing with DaVinci, using Affinity for pictures editing, and then at the same time having like 20 tabs open in Firefox, which is my preferred browser for long historical reasons.
Mm-hmm.
But I also have Chrome. Right now I'm running Chrome because Zencaster, this platform we're using, is Chrome centric. But look, it's an incredible machine for the money. Like I, as a longtime Mac user, I'm like, that's all I need. And I am who I am. I'm a creator. Like I've been saying for years what you said about your wife and the M1. I've been saying for years that nobody, it's like the iPhones. Unless you want a telephoto, nobody needs a Pro. The iPhone 17 last year is the best phone they've ever made. In fact, it's the best selling phone they've ever made. And I'm like, yes, it is incredibly good. And like, you don't need the Pro, but you're going to get the Pro because of subsidies, or you want a telephoto or whatever. And you're never going to use those Pro features at all, ever. Like that chip is just idling half the time doing nothing, right? On most people's phones.
Yeah.
And now it can be recycled and put it in a MacBook Neo, which is also going to idle most of the time. But some of us are going to be able to use it. And I think that, in the same way as I don't think, unless you're like doing some crazy AI heavy lifting, or like you have some workflow with video that's like multiple 8K streams or whatever, you don't even need a Pro Mac these days. It's crazy. It's crazy where we're at. I love it.
No, it is.
All right. So I'm going to link to your A16 video as well, the ZenBook A16. It's a bigger laptop, right? It's the 16-inch version.
It's 60. It is super light. I mean,
the weight, the 14 was so light. I was blown away by it when I had it.
And I think this is where ASUS needs to maximize the supply chain and go.
I think ASUS is the only one who can pull this off right now in the short term. Like, honestly, even Lenovo can't do it. I think ASUS is, because they're Taiwanese, and Taiwan is what started the PC industry. Let's be real. Okay. They still are the leaders, and that's why TSMC is there and stuff. I mean, China is super important here. I think Lenovo is probably the second most important here. But I think if anyone's going to pull off a MacBook Neo and hit those price points, it's going to be ASUS.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think ASUS in the short term, I think Lenovo in the long term, because they do have the skill for it. But both of them have the benefit of they've got good relationship with Intel. But Lenovo, though, has that Intel Aura Edition tag.
Yeah.
Which it at first sounds like a gimmick, but the way that those devices are optimized, you get at least whatever your battery life you think you're getting an extra 4 hours on top of that.
Yep.
With it. So I think that can definitely happen. But again, they move at slow paces that by the time something comes out, there'll be a Neo 2, there could be a Neo desktop, there could be so many different things.
I'm kind of digging it. Let's switch gears and talk about this phone here. For those of you who are not watching our video, this is the Honor 600, which is, as you can see, kind of an iPhone clone. It's got that weird camera island thing. And this is not the Pro version. The Pro version has a third camera where my finger is here, and it looks exactly like an iPhone 17 Pro. It also comes in that orange color that's my glasses, that the iPhone has. So this is the Honor 600, and honestly, it's a pretty decent mid-ranger. It's a little dim here. Oh, no, there you go. It kicked in a bit because I'm in direct, daytime light here in front of a window. It looks a lot like an iPhone because it pretty much is a lot like an iPhone. But look, it's a $550, roughly euro, whatever, phone. So it's not sold in the US. Snapdragon 7 Gen 4. It's got a beautiful, 1.5K display. It's not LTPO, it's LTPS. It's got 200 megapixel main sensor with OIS and a 12 megapixel ultra wide. Nice setup. No telephoto on this one. And the battery is great. 7,000 milliamp hour, 80 watt charging. Doesn't have wireless. You have to get the Pro to get the wireless charging. So the difference is the Pro has, that extra 50 megapixel 3.5x telephoto and a Snapdragon 8 Elite and 50 watt wireless charging. This lacks all three of those things. Instead, it has a 7 Gen 4. I'm just bringing it up because it's been a really long time since I've had a chance to play with an Honor mid-range phone. And would I pick that? Possibly not. I mean, this, doesn't exist in North America, but it goes directly face-to-face with things like Pixel 10a and nothing, phone for a Pro. And that's where I would go with that. I would go with nothing for a Pro because you get a telephoto, you get the same chipset, you get the same display, you get a metal build as well like this. You get, you get support for North America. It's officially sold here. So bands and everything. So, but I think in other markets, this phone would be pretty great. And I wanted to show it to you because, again, it's really rare for me to get a mid-range Honor phone. And I want, the phones were announced last week. We didn't talk about them because we were all Moto all the time last week on the show. So check it out. I'll put some link to the specs and stuff. If you're in a market that sells this phone, I think it's a pretty solid candidate at a price point. Any thoughts on this? You've probably read about it at this point.
I mean, I've read, I've done some hands-on, but I didn't actually get the device. I think one of the things about this device though that is interesting is because I was in Shenzhen last month twice. So I'm now a citizen at this point.
I mean, now you're converted. You understand China now, right?
Yeah,
they're kicking our ass, right? Yeah.
Okay. The thing to note though is iPhone's presence in China is still really strong.
Very strong.
I mean, the local devices are everywhere, to be fair, but the iPhone presence is noticeably strong. And the Samsung presence is noticeably less.
It's pretty much nothing, yeah.
Yeah. So a lot of manufacturers try to make these iPhone clones.
Yeah, basically.
And I think it's for two reasons. It's cost effective and having an iPhone. And having something that looks like an iPhone, and when people say, you look at it, you're like, fine, it's the status thing, right? And I've also seen this with a lot of, because also Honor's try to do a big push into a lot of African countries, especially Nigeria, where I'm originally from. And I've seen a lot of the Nigerian creators, talk about Honor there because that price point for most people in the country is your luxury price point. Your iPhones and your Galaxies are just too expensive. The Ultras,
yeah, it's aspirational, right? So if you can get close to that for a lower price point, that makes sense.
Yeah. It definitely does. And it's interesting that tactics, they had a very big launch event in Nigeria about it. I saw a bunch of the guys there at the events. They kind of talked about the phone, and I was like, very interesting because the Nigerian market is currently owned by Infinix.
Yeah, Infinix and Techno, which are Transsion.
And Techno, yes, exactly. Yeah. It's owned by them completely. So interesting.
Yeah, fascinating. Listen, let's switch gears and talk about cars because you and I love cars. And I've been an early EV adopter. I really love them for very different reasons than I love gas cars. I love a manual stick shift gas car. I'm really not big on hybrids and plug-in hybrids. I wrote an entire article on Tech Radar a year or so ago about how I think plug-in hybrids are silly. And I still believe that. I feel it's not the technology itself. It's the people don't plug them in a lot. In Europe, they buy them as tax write-offs, basically, and never plug them in. I think North America, you have two kind of categories of people. You have the people who believe in PHEV and drive electric and plug it in every night. They do all their errands on electric, and when they do a road trip, they use the gas engine, or when they want the sporty drive, it combines both and they get the performance. But it's really rare. I think most people buy them and treat them like regular hybrids. And at that point, you're carrying around a heavy battery. You still have all the maintenance costs of a gas engine. So it doesn't make much sense to me. I think you're better off going with pure battery EV if you're going to do that, especially now that you can easily do road trips with pure battery EVs. But that's kind of where I'm coming from. And the reason I'm bringing all this up is because I'm coming around a little bit on PHEVs because I finally drove some that are decent. Like a while back, I drove the Porsche, the Cayenne plug-in hybrid.
Yeah.
And it's Porsche, right? So it's going to be great. It's going to drive well. It's going to be comfortable. It's going to have great ergonomics, seating position, and all that. But it just didn't hit it for me because I'm so used to, when I drive a car that does not have manual shifting, and I'm not talking about pedals, I'm talking like a clutch pedal and manual shifting. I like to have that regen feeling, that feeling of when you let off the accelerator, the car brakes for you, right? And you get that on EVs. And I also don't like creep. I don't like automatics. I grew up with manual, and then I went to EVs, right? So for me, it's like turn off creep, high regen. That's how I like to drive my EVs. And then on drive gas cars, I can put it in second gear and get that same engine braking, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So with that in mind, the Cayenne did not give me an option for something that let me do high regen or turn off creep. And so it felt like driving an automatic, even though, when I was driving in the twisties, it handled super well. It's a Porsche and it's comfortable and it's beautiful. It just didn't hit it for me. Then I drove the Mercedes E53 AMG wagon recently. And oh my God, that thing. I also drove the BMW M5 Touring, right? And you're going to
Mm-hmm.
say that one's even more powerful and on paper even better. But no, 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 no. It's all about the Mercedes. I'm telling you now, it's a smaller car, so it feels more like
More
sporty and
sporty. Yeah.
cockpity. And you still carry your friends in and all their luggage in the back. Awesome. Then the PHEV, the hybrid plug-in drivetrain, is actually quite well done. You have regen. In electric mode, you can set regen to a high level.
Okay.
You can't turn off creep, but it's not intrusive. And more importantly, it does have the performance of an EV, like 0 to 60 in 3.4 seconds. It just kicks butt. Now, sure, you're burning some gas, but you get the sounds. And you know, this is an inline six. It's not even the V8.
That's what killed me with the BMW Touring. Like, it's
I agree.
for a powerful car. It's just like, it's so quiet.
It's so quiet, but you turn the sounds on, they're all fake and crappy. And you might as well have an EV then, you know? Like, so my point is, this is what I loved about the E53 AMG. It's like, it's a wagon. It's compact still, relatively speaking. It's relatively lightweight. It handles like a stink. It looks incredible. I don't think the M5 Touring looks as good, in my opinion. It's a bit of a caricature, like all modern BMWs, right? But on top of that, it's an inline six twin turbo, yet it sounds. It growls. It's got drama. It's got spectacle. It's an AMG, true and true, you know? The four-cylinder AMGs I've driven have not hit the spot for me. And it's not because they're four cylinders. I'm a big fan of four cylinders. It's just not there. It's too much drivetrain delay. And
I would agree. I think Mercedes does not make a good four-cylinder. That's just my thing.
That is generally true. But I also feel like, to me as an EV, used to EVs now, or used to manual where you have instant response, having instant response in an automatic kind of hybrid, whether it's plug-in or not, is essential, right? And the E53, and the Cayenne was good for that too. Like, you get the instant response. But right now, today, this week, I'm driving a Volvo XC90. I'm being a soccer mom, okay? Like, hardcore. And guess what? You'll never believe this. This is the best one yet. Not performance-wise. Like, it doesn't come close to the M5 or the E53. It drives good. It's fast, but not like it's fast enough to be like a mid-range or entry-level EV, like an Equinox or something. It's good enough. But what's cool about it is you can turn off creep and you can put it in a high regen mode, whether you're on gas or electric or automatic hybrid mode or whatever, or in pure battery mode. That blew my mind. And that's Geely for you. That's China, right?
Yeah.
Volvo is owned by Geely, Chinese company. And the fact that they understand that all those benefits of driving an EV and having that control, or that instant response when you accelerate, instant response when you want to slow down, I can literally, this is the first plug-in hybrid I can one pedal drive. Blew my mind. I couldn't believe it. So look, I'm not saying you should go buy an XC90. It's big, it's heavy, it's an SUV. It's really a family car, right? Like, look, it's great for 3 rows, you know, awesome. But if you want the fun part and you don't want to commit to EVs, I do believe there might be some room for some performance plug-in hybrids like the E53 AMG. And that's been my experience. You drove the E53 and the M5, right?
Not the E53 yet.
You need to get one.
I'm waiting to get that, but because I've been traveling, I've just kind of like, still that. But I drove the M5 Touring. I like the car, and
it's great,
I also don't like the car. Like, it's giving me a lot of mixed feelings with that. Design is one of them, you know. BMW has been...
It's a caricature. Like, I'm not saying it's wrong. Like, I get some of it, but...
Yeah, exactly. But I do understand your feeling there with the hybrid train on that car, which I was like, just ditch it and just give me the V8 and call it a day.
And you see, the other thing that came out of me driving the E53 was just ditch the engine and give me a pure EV. Like, I wanted that to be like, give me a Model 3 performance type drivetrain in this chassis, in this E53 wagon awesomeness. That's what I want. Yeah. So, so ultimately, I think it's funny because we're thinking completely opposite. Because I agree with you. I think the M5, I'd want that with a V8, just pure. But the E53 is so good at tech and so good at being an electric car when it's electric that I'm kind of like, just crank it up. Forget the EQE and all that. Just give us that shape too, the wagon. Perfect. But here's the thing, I think that really matters. And I think it's that overall, you cannot get to that level of performance with hybrid or gas until you spend way more than an EV. And that's the thing that bothers me. It's like I look at the price of that E53 I drove or the M5. It's like 150, whatever it is. It's ridiculous, right?
Yeah.
And it's like you can get that level of performance on an Ioniq 5N for 65K, and that is,
I mean, that's the thing, like I said, my trip to Shenzhen, I took a lot of Didis, which is the local Uber there. And I was in many vehicles, some BYDs, some Xpengs, you name it, different cars, all of them EVs. I think there was one that was, what's the opposite of hybrid that they have in China where it's
EREV.
EREV,
where it's a motor that just charges the battery. But it drives like an EV because it's an EV essentially.
EV, exactly, right. And looking at the tech and looking at the price points that they have there, it really behooves, like I feel like the auto industry, especially in the US, it needs to, I'll give you slightly biblical terminology, like it needs to have a full baptism. It needs to dunk itself into the water, cleanse itself from all its sins because it has sinned on us for years, in that regard. Because I'm watching all these car companies and I'm watching the average Chinese person. I'm talking to different reps. I'm like, what car you drive? Like, what do you drive? Like, just trying to figure out where they are. And they're like, oh, like two people who still drive Teslas, everybody's driving something from a different manufacturer. But they like the fact that they've not bought gas, especially the younger reps. They've not bought gas in such a long time. The older ones, you see the skew that once you get older, then they go for the Porsche, the BMW, or the Mercedes. They're like,
the status,
let me get my status vehicle now in that regard. And then coming back home, for a month, I'm still working on the video. I had a Cadillac Fistic.
It's great.
And remember we had this conversation with Danny talking about my EV experience, range anxiety, and it's changed. And the main reason it's changed is because we moved in August to a full house. I have a garage,
so you can charge.
And even though I don't have a level 2 charger, but
you don't even need it. Level 1 is fine to catch up on your daily errands, 100%. Yep.
When I was able to plug it in, I was like, okay, the next time I talk to Miriam, we have to talk about this because it changed the whole perspective. But again, my issue was I just couldn't charge
right
at home. And using the car was also when we've had this terrible crisis with
the gas,
with gas and
war and all that
in
stuff. San Francisco.
Okay.
I mean, I don't drive gas, so I don't care.
Yeah, and I have a gas guzzler. I have our car is a Lexus GX 550.
Ooh.
Yes. The only benefit is that I work from home, or my office is not far away. I usually I would take a scooter in the summer, just scoot over. And my wife works from home. The only trip we have is daycare, drop our son off. So gas still lasts long enough on that car.
Yeah.
But even now I'm going, while I'm testing cars, I'm like, eventually I think we need a second car. And my second car, as much as I wanted to have my BMW that I wanted, just tear up everywhere, I'm now thinking, okay, look, I have to go logically as if I get a BMW, I might as well just get electric, right? And go that route. Or, the only other company that has piqued my interest is Scout Motors because they have the EREV vehicle. But I don't want another SUV. I want a wagon. And I'm with you. I would take a wagon that's either either the BMW or either AMD E53. That is, if it's electric, I'll take it. I will gladly take that wagon in there.
I just want to add one thing that also we're talking M5 Touring versus E53 wagon. And this is kind of a segue to talking about tech in cars like infotainment in ADAS tech. Now, the ADAS on BMWs is really great. The ADAS on Mercedes is really great. So there's no issues there. But the infotainment, now I realize that BMW has a whole new system out now with the iX3 and the new i3, and it's propagating the i7 and 7 series just got it as well. But number one, I don't like the new infotainment system, like the slanted screen and that little bar it's gimmicky. It doesn't really do anything for you. But Mercedes is nailing it. I drove the CLA last year, which is the electric entry-level car. The
Oh.
GLC has that technology as well. And, the GLC electric and the C-Class electric is also having that technology. And guess what? It started with the E-Class today, the existing. So the E53 has the new tech, the new infotainment stack with the camera where you can do Zoom calls inside the car. And it's so intuitive. It is finally, it's like still very Mercedes. Like you feel like you have a vibe, but it feels more like an iPad to use. It feels more like a Tesla or like a Chinese car. And in that sense, it's also super responsive and it does the job and it's unintrusive. It's just, and here's the killer. Mercedes took me to Alabama, to Tuscaloosa, where they have a plant. That's where they make all the GLEs and the GLSs. All the GLEs and GLS for the entire world are made in Alabama at this massive plant that they built in the mid-90s. So I got to visit the plant and I got to see, the manufacturing. And more importantly, they released a mid-model refresh of the GLE and the GLS there. This is not my thing. I mean, those are gas cars available as plug-in hybrid as well. But the infotainment is the latest. It's from the CLA. They now have the electric car technology in the gas and hybrid cars. And I think that's a game changer because, when you're like me and you're used to having an iPad on your dashboard, and again, don't get me wrong, I like physical controls for like climate and stuff. I'm not saying everything should be touchscreen, but when you're used to having a iPad-like smooth tech experience in your car, for me, I started with my Model 3 in 2018 when I still had one. It's like almost 10 years of me doing this. I want that in my car. Guys, it's a game changer when you're used to it. Okay, so having a gas car now that has that tech, or a hybrid, a plug-in hybrid, is really exciting. The other thing that's exciting, I mentioned the Ioniq 5N. Hyundai took me to their plant in Savannah, Georgia, where they manufactured all the EVs. So that includes the Ioniq 5 and the Ioniq 9 here in the US. And guess the Ioniq 6 is still made in Korea. But here's the thing. They kind of hinted, that the paddle shifter fun stuff, it sounds like a gimmick, right? But if you ever drive an Ioniq 5N, even though it's synthetic sound, oh my God, the fact that you can redline, you can hit the rev limiter, the fact that it'll bog down if you had a lower, the torque won't happen if you had a lower gear, they simulate the whole thing, and then you have the sound and the popples and cracks when you downshift and stuff.
Yeah.
They're bringing that, supposedly, this is a rumor at this point, they're bringing that to all their EVs or most of their EVs going forward because it's it's all software, right? That's software. And the paddle shifter is already there on all their EVs for regen, to set how much regen you want. So it's easy. And so, there's a car that's available in Canada and the UK that's not available in the US. It was coming to the US, but they canceled it because of the economy and the climate around EVs, our regime being so anti-EV. It's the Kia EV9 GT. Now, how there's an EV6 GT. Now, imagine 3-row SUV with the level of performance of Ioniq 5N or EV6 GT with the paddle shifters and the crackle pops and the fake gears in a 3-row. I drove this in Canada and I was like, I'm ready for a family, Enobong. I want some kids back there. It was insane. I was like, what? This is the future. You can drive this thing in comfort mode, in eco mode around town and totally chill, you'd be an Uber driver with it. And then you can go nuts on the twisties and the back roads, shift your paddle shifters and insane. And for those of you going, well, you're talking about Hyundai and Kia, different companies. No. They have the same platform, the same EV platform, eGMP, and that's also Genesis using it. So visiting the plant in Savannah, Georgia, kind of opened my eyes a little bit to how they manufacture. We got to do when the car is finished made, just fresh off the factory line, they put it on dyno, test the drivetrain and do the alignment and stuff. And then they drive it out the door onto a test track to do noise and vibration testing, if there's any rattles, to test braking, to test ADAS, to see if it stays in its lane and stuff. And they let us try that. Not with new cars. They use existing cars. But we did the track and it was so much fun. And then they took us off-road in the Ioniq 5 XRT, the one that's slightly lifted. They have one that's kind of like an off-road version. And we got to do a rallycross course, we just beat the crap out of that car. It was so much fun. Just to point out to you that, we know that EVs are very good off-road, like Rivian, right? And Scout.
Yeah.
And like Scout doesn't exist yet, but Rivian has shown that very extensively. Mercedes G-Wagon electric is another example.
Mm-hmm.
But even at a lower price point, like an Ioniq 5 XRT, you can have so much fun in the dirt with that thing. Unbelievable. I really thought multiple times that I was breaking it because I heard some clunking sounds coming out of that suspension that I was like, oh boy, what? Oh, I probably hit the bump limiter or whatever it's called. Anyway, lots of fun. And I want to just bring that up because, for those of you who are thinking, I'm still not sure about EVs because they're so expensive. Well, now with the gas prices out there, and the fact that charging networks are incredibly good, they keep growing. And even though, things have maybe slowed down in EV land in the US, charging networks haven't. And I think we're ready. I think, and the only thing we need is the affordable prices from China. And in Canada, where I am right now, it's happening. Like we are starting to see Geely dealerships and BYD dealerships come out. Like there's a whole bunch of stuff happening, especially in the Toronto area out east. So,
what's interesting, with that whole sentiment is even though with the way the administration has pulled everything back on EVs in the US, I've seen more, what's the big charging network in Electrify America stations? 3 more have opened up around me. When we had that conversation last year, there were only 2 and they were not close. Now there are 3 around me. And I feel like at least Electrify America and those brands who make charging stations in the US know that it's going to change. Like, even though it's definitely going to change.
You can't stop progress, folks. That's the reality of it.
And because, there was an article that came out that Ford, Toyota, and Honda said they can't compete against Chinese manufacturers. And I agree, and also feel like that's a bit of a ruse from them to a certain degree, in the sense that like they're putting this fear because either one, they want to extend those tariffs as long as possible, but 2, they also have some things coming up that they're hoping will be this like, little diamond in the rough that everybody goes like, oh, okay, you've cracked the egg. It's like, it's 45,000 and, it makes sense. And then today I saw an article from, I can't remember who, but said Ford is working on a $30,000 truck.
Yeah, no, they've been doing that for a while. And I'm hoping,
that is, this year. So they're hoping it to come out this year. So I'm going, okay, I see where you're going, but I need more of that on a regular basis, because one of the most distinct things I realized from China was after going through all the different EVs and like there are very few cars, I saw very few gas cars other than luxury cars. Everything else was an EV, but it was like you said, the tech and the practicality of the EV. And somebody there told me this. He said, a lot of people are commuting far distances, work, and sometimes, people actually work out of their cars or live in their cars in a certain way. That's why, like when you mentioned doing the Zoom call in the car, right? That's why that tech is there. That's why it's so easy in China. You can flow from your phone to the car and vice versa. And that's why all the luxuries that we consider luxuries are almost standard across most cars.
And also, that is why I'm not a big fan of Android Auto and CarPlay, because on a Tesla, for example, if you have the Tesla app on your phone, whether it's an iPhone or an Android, it's a completely seamless experience because the Tesla app has so much access to your phone that it can talk and send all that to your car, and it's seamless. And you get a much better experience on the bigger screen because you're not using a tiny little windowed version of that screen from your phone. And there are some drawbacks for sure, but I think that people are going to come around when there's better vertical integration between their phones and other devices in their cars. And that needs to happen. We still haven't broken that in the US yet. Like there's no way we're even close. Tesla is the closest, maybe Rivian. And that's why CarPlay and Android Auto are still very important. Like I'm not saying that you shouldn't use them and they don't matter. I'm just saying that like right now on the Volvo, I'm using the native Android Automotive system, like on GM cars where I logged in. I can use CarPlay and Android Auto, but I chose to log in with my Gmail account because it's a better experience.
No, absolutely.
Just a better experience.
It's funny you mentioned that because there was an article where or video where the Ford CEO said that like he really loves the integration with Chinese manufacturers. He talked about Huawei too. He's like Huawei and Xiaomi, like you can go from your phone to your car. But he's he didn't explain it well. He didn't explain the fact that they it was just pure synergy between both rather than you um jumping on Android Auto. And the comments from people were like, I prefer Android Auto. I was like, you guys don't know car. I wasn't trying to be. I wanted to jump in, but I've learned my lesson from years. Just step away from this stuff. I'm
Yeah,
like,
yeah, you should.
the reason we have that is, to me, Android Auto is a stopgap. And when Rivian said we're
100%.
not doing that, right? And people were like, "What?" I'm like, look, when you have a system that works for the device itself, right? And as long as you can talk to the device itself, and I think that is the biggest thing that I feel like in a weird way, we do need some government interaction in this, because if you think about it, in China, every app talks to each other,
Yeah.
and I feel like they're just forced to.
Yeah.
I go there, I use Alipay, and I put in my credit card, and I'm done. I didn't have to sign up for anything else to use any other service.
Yeah.
So that needs to happen where it's like, once you have your phone and find there's a one-time car connect, right, type thing, boom. As soon as you walk into your car, it's like, oh, you were listening to this music.
If you've used an Apple device of any kind and you've used any of the continuity features, you know how you can jump from your iPad to your Mac to your phone and it's complete. That's what it should be like in your car. And I'm sorry, CarPlay and Android Auto are not even close to that level of seamlessness,
No.
And I think it needs to improve. But I also think that people underestimate how much work Rivian and Tesla and the Chinese have done to bring that to their cars today. And that's, basically it. Yeah. Listen, let's talk about AI actually, because I went to 2 conferences. I don't know why. Adobe invited me to Adobe Summit, which is their enterprise AI. Yeah, it's Enterprise AI conference. And then I also got invited by NTT Research to their upgrade conference. And that is more of like we're developing tech today that's going to be meaningful in 10 and 20 years, because they are, NTT is the big Japanese telecom company, right? They initially kind of ran the country's, phone network, and then eventually became a mobile carrier. And now there's competition and all that. But they have a research branch, like kind of like AT&T Research, who invented Unix and who invented all kinds of technology we use every day right now, like cellular and stuff with Motorola. NTT Research does some cool stuff. So going to their conference, I was like, seeing some kind of crazy future forward tech. And Adobe Summit, both of these had so much AI and so much like B2B enterprise AI that it was kind of like an eye-opening experience for me, because that's not stuff I cover. And I told them that, but they're like, still say, come and check it out. And I was like, okay. And then I was like, but they live in a different world. Like their way of using AI and seeing AI is kind of like, I understand. I mean, I've always understood why people are weary of AI and how, some people are anti-AI. But when you listen to these people at these conferences, you're like, yeah, I don't want to be on this train. This train is not, it's kind of toxic. I don't want to be on board with this. Although I have to say the NTT Research stuff was way more, very future forward. And I think they seem to be wanting to put guardrail on the AI much more and kind of control what it can be used for. So all of this, I don't want to really get into the details of this because I don't really have much to add to that. But what I want to ask you to kind of as a final thought before we wrap up is, how has AI benefited you as a creator, and where do you stand right now?
So I like the idea of where some of the narrative of where AI should be taking us. And what I mean by that is, I like AI agents, but there's so many things that have to wrap around that, for it to be really effective. My AI use personally is limited to, I don't, some people use it for research. I don't. I'm beginning to use it for the back end of my business. So, I'm working on building my own specific contract reader, being able to look at my contracts, stuff like that, stuff that I can churn in. Then I just go over and I look over like, okay, cool, this makes sense. This makes sense. And I think that's really great. The problem I see with AI is the AI industry in the US is split into almost 2 fronts. So the back end stuff that you mentioned with NTT is some of the stuff, like I have a buddy of mine who works at Cisco. and he uses a lot of AI tools every day. And he's like, it's great, man. Like for us, it's literally tools that for the company, it allows us to do double the work.
Yeah. It's totally efficiency thing. Yeah, for sure.
So he's like, his efficiency is like, there's still some issues with it, but he's like, I do like the fact that I can now start going through stuff and looking at pain points that I need to. And that part is, I'm like, that's a very solid business application. For the consumer side, currently, there is nothing that is mass market. The closest thing we got was Claudebot. And that's not even the mass market thing. That was you having to buy a Mac Mini and then technically learning how to basically run scripts and silo a script, all this stuff that the casual consumer won't do. Now, the only benefit of that coming out is because it forced the companies to realize and go like, oh, that's what consumers want, right? I want an agent who I can send on tasks and then come back to me and said, I have done those tasks while I go do something else.
Yep.
And that's where I feel like the industry needs to go to. Because, you know, one of the things
guardrails, right? Like, I mean, privacy and security here are like a can of worms, right? Like I'm not like hyper privacy security focused, but I still like, I don't want all my stuff to be just random. Who knows where it goes already? So like, you know what I'm saying, right?
You know, I feel like this is where blockchain and AI needs to go together. You know, the fact that like we don't control our information.
Mm-hmm.
Being able to have my information on the blockchain that I own that's encrypted to me, and then I can give my agent sole access because then I can trace where it's going.
Yeah.
I can see what's happening to it and I can go, okay, cool. Like, yeah, you're supposed to give that to my doctor. That's fine. That's cool. That, no, we're not going there. You know, that will make it such an easy thing for the consumer to go, makes sense. Because one of the things I was talking to the guys at, you know, Google with Gemini, they were like, you know, what do you want? I was like, look, right now in my life, I want an agent just between myself and my wife because we have different schedules.
Right.
And, you know, yeah, she's better at putting stuff in calendar than I am. I am terrible. And I also have very different meetings and stuff like that. We have a son. So to be able to play and manage that, and the only thing that works for us now is because we both work from home.
Right.
But being able to just put things in the calendar, because I'll mention, I'm like, hey, I'm traveling, you know, next week somewhere. She's like, where? Like, I'm like, because I didn't put it in. But if I had an agent, all that stuff will be in there. Yep. And then when she sends me a message, she goes, we should do this. And it's like, hey, dude, you have a meeting at this time. I like even just the simple peace of mind of managing that. I think you will find a great amount of people. But the problem is the companies are not looking at the practicality. Yeah. They're looking at almost just raw horsepower. It's like, oh, now we have a V12 engine. Let's go. We're like, nah. How about you optimize that four-cylinder first?
Yeah, exactly. No, I agree with you 100%. I think for me, the big thing is like, and this is one of the things that NTT Research showed that they're working on what they call a universal wallet, which is basically a blockchain-based, you know, it lets you control what data that you own in your wallet, meaning like your ID cards, your medical records, all that stuff, to where and with the intent of AI agents using that, right? So that's kind of, and they're literally working on like a 10-year from now framework, right? Because they're like, it's so complex, you know, and you can tell it's like, there's definitely some regulatory input into that. Like the government is playing in that as well. But I think that's healthy because the government does need to get involved here somewhat, you know? But for me, AI, you know, it's been a bit of a game changer for audio editing in some areas. It's been a bit of a game change for things like vetting headlines, SEO friendly headlines, summarizing my reviews to do a quick little 2-sentence blurb, you know, like it does that really well. Creating thumbnails for videos that are kind of viral. I'm just playing with that lately. I haven't actually done it yet, but it's cool. But yeah, I mean, look, there are tools and I'm going to use them because they're beneficial and they're saving me time. But I agree, we're not quite there at the agent level yet. And I want that too, but I also want that in a way that doesn't feel scary, you know, and right now it does feel really scary. And I'm hoping we can get there. But the last thing I want to bring up really quickly is there's rumors of OpenAI doing a phone that doesn't have any apps. Well, it has the apps. presume it's going to be Android. Supposedly it's going to run MediaTek chip of some kind. But the idea is that you have all your apps on there, but then you don't interact with the apps. You tell the agent or whatever, the chat GPT bot or whatever that's on the phone, the interface is your type text box or speak to it box. How do you feel about that? Like, first of all, I don't think we need a chat GPT phone for that. Like, I think we could make that happen on an Android phone as a, I don't know, like a launcher. But secondly, like, what kind of worms are they opening? Because I don't trust OpenAI right now. They're not trustworthy company.
I think that the biggest problem is you don't trust them. No, it's not necessarily whether it's the whole Facebook phone all over again and that kind of thing.
Oh, you nailed it.
Because to me, I like the idea if they strip it down to its core. Because we can add that to current Android phones. We can add it to an iPhone at some level. But if it's built to the core of the operating system itself, like tied into Android on a very core level, where as somebody sends you an image, you're sending that image to somebody else, or like you don't have to do the 4 steps that you're doing on your phone because it's learning from what you do. And then you also just tell it to do something and it does it. I think you will see a generation which will enjoy that kind of workflow, right? In there. But the main problem is, number one, how much of this is tied to the reputation that OpenAI now has as a company? Number two, what are we getting for on-device processing? Because not everything like when I'm working on my device and I'm doing something on my device, can't that just stay on my device, right? I don't have to go to the cloud. And this to me is a way for them to have their models learn from people directly, like purely on the purest level. And
that's the challenge, I think, for all AI. When you start using the tools, they're taking that information and using it for their models. And, you consent to it in the terms of service. And that's always a bit problematic.
Okay, so here's a question for you, because I asked this question to Panos when I was talking to him about Alexa. And, he couldn't give me a pure direct answer. But the question was simply this, is like, I like the way Alexa is going now. We're using it at home. It feels like it's understanding more and it's a bit more like reactive to what we are doing. I'm like, since we are running into this problem of we need to, of course, get more, servers, more AI data centers, all that stuff, would you be okay with you as a consumer with paying for Alexa on device on a regular basis?
I mean, perhaps. I don't use Alexa much. I just don't feel
just like an AI tool that you're using, on device itself. And then the company has...
I'm not against it per se. I think does it become worthwhile for me to use for the price that they ask, right? Like that's basically all subscriptions that I have are basically like, there's a threshold where I'm like, okay, I need this now and I'm going to pay for it. Like The Verge, I subscribe to The Verge. Like it is one of the best tech websites on the world. And absolutely, I love that they also have political stuff in there and other things. I pay for that because it's worth it. But, is it worth it? I don't know yet. I'd have to use it. I think it's going to have to be, bait and switch in a way. It's going to have to be free for a while. And if I feel like it's great, then I'll pay for it in the same way as I do other services right now. Yeah.
Yeah, because my answer to him, I told him, I said, look, if you give me an on-device where I can set up at home and it manages our family
on-device, to be honest. For sure.
It manages my family calendar and that's all I needed to do. I was like, I will pay you $20 a month for it. I don't care. Because then I will have to hire an assistant, which will cost me more. So, no.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a very smart business decision there. Listen, we should wrap up. Do you want to tell folks where they can find you on the internet, all your various social media handle, of course, your YouTube and your website and all that stuff?
Sure thing. You guys can find me at Booredatwork, which is spelled BOOREDATWORK, all one word. On YouTube, it's the same name, Instagram, TikTok, IG, even Twitter. You can find me all there with that same handle.
Awesome. And folks, you should definitely subscribe to E's channel and check him out on the socials. And if you want to chat with us together, I'm TNKJRL, Tankerl like the comic book character without the vowels on pretty much all the platforms, including Twitter still, yes. But I'm mostly active on Blue Sky and on Insta and Threads. I also have a TikTok that ends with 69 because I couldn't get my handle, and 69 is my year of birth. So yeah, subscribe to all the social. You know where the podcast lives? It's mobiletechpodcast.com. If it's your first time here, please subscribe. I'm on all the major platforms, Spotify, Apple Podcast, YouTube Music, all that stuff. So and if your app lets you rate or review the show, please consider doing that too. That would be great. There's a YouTube channel as well, youtube.com/mobiletechpodcast. You'll see some videos on there. I've got a hands-on video with the Moto phones, the Razors, all 4 of them that were announced last week, up there right now. So yeah, you know how YouTube works. So like, subscribe, tell your friends, click the bell, comment, all that good stuff. youtube.com/mobiletechpodcast. And finally, there's a Patreon. I mentioned it early on in the show here. If you want a video version of this podcast, you can get one every week, a day in advance for $5 a month at patreon.com/tankerl. That's patreon.com/TNKGRL, like my handle on social. So yeah, if you can support me, I would appreciate it. I also want to thank our sponsor, Mint Mobile. So as you know, I'm constantly reviewing multiple phones, and while that's fun, it also means I'm constantly spending a lot of money for wireless service on multiple SIMs. That's where Mint Mobile comes in, and that's who I'm partnering with for today's podcast. If you also want to save money on your wireless service, switch to Mint Mobile. As tech-savvy early adopters, you've probably heard of Mint Mobile before, but let me quickly tell you how awesome their service is. Mint Mobile offers premium wireless for as low as $15 a month, and you don't have to sacrifice any coverage, speed, or data. They're built on the nation's largest 5G network. They keep costs low because they sell direct to you online. They cut out the retail stores and salespeople. Why should you pay more than you have to for access to the same network? In my experience testing phones, Mint Mobile delivers the same data speeds and call quality as the big 3 for a fraction of the cost. Switching to Mint is super easy. Thanks to their eSIMs, you can sign up and activate immediately right on your phone from the comfort of your home. No more standing around and waiting in line at a big wireless store. You can keep your current device and phone number and easily switch services. And if your phone isn't eSIM compatible, Mint will ship you a new SIM free of charge. All Mint Mobile plans include unlimited nationwide talk and text, lightning fast 5G, and free mobile hotspot. Mint will show you how much data you use each month and recommend plans that save you money. Mint also offers a modern family plan that lets you set up a super affordable family plan with as little as 2 lines. Use my link mintmobile.com/mobiletech to get premium wireless starting for $15 a month. That's mintmobile.com/mobiletech. Stop paying more than you need on your wireless bill and start saving big with Mint Mobile. And E, thanks so much for being my guest and having a fun discussion on a variety of topics. I really appreciate it. Thanks.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely, folks. We'll have another show next week, so stay tuned for that. Until then, cheers, everybody.
Bye.